sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
Hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving deep today into something that really shook folks up in Lincoln Heights, Ohio.
Yeah, Lincoln Heights. It's near Cincinnati, historic black community.
Exactly. And this story, well, it grabbed national attention, that's for sure. Gets right to the heart of some pretty complex issues we're facing in America.
You're right. It's not just a local thing. What happened in Lincoln Heights forces us to ask some tough questions about hate,
Yeah.
and extremism,
Yeah.
really about the core of who we are as a society.
Okay, so let's break it down. It all began on February 7th, 2025. A group, about a dozen neo-Nazis.
All masked up, dressed in black.
Right. They show up on a highway overpass, waving swastika flags, and they're holding a sign.
America for the white man, it said.
And the location they chose, I mean, that just makes it even more disturbing.
Absolutely. Not just any random overpass. It connects Evendale and Lincoln Heights. Lincoln Heights was the very first self-governing black city north of the Mason-Dixon line. And to add to that, Evendale is right next to Reading, Ohio, a former sundown town, back in the day.
Meaning?
Black people weren't allowed there after dark.
Wow. So they really chose this spot carefully. Like it was designed to provoke a reaction.
Yeah, it's hard not to see it that way.
So what was the immediate reaction from the people in Lincoln Heights?
Well, you can imagine, right? Anger, fear, disbelief. One resident, Kachara Talbert, said she was terrified. And it's understandable when you see a group like that masked, potentially armed. Who knows what they're capable of?
Yeah, absolutely. And residents did say the neo-Nazis looked to be heavily armed. Plus, there's video, them shouting racial slurs.
Yeah.
This wasn't just some abstract, expression of an opinion. It felt very deliberate, like an attempt to instill fear, assert dominance.
That's a key point. The symbols they use, the location, the aggressive behavior, all of it points to a real effort to intimidate and dehumanize. They were using tactics with a long and very ugly history.
So how did the community respond? Did they just stand by and watch?
Not at all. They took action, confronted the neo-Nazis, led to a tense standoff.
So they weren't going to let it slide. What did the police do?
This is where things get complicated. The police response, or lack of response, really added to the tension. One resident, Teresa Brooks, said police told them the neo-Nazis were just, exercising their right to free speech.
Hold on. So even though they were armed, shouting slurs, clearly trying to intimidate people, the police said it was all legal.
That's what residents were told, yeah.
I bet that didn't go over well.
Not at all. People were furious. Many residents compared it to how police have reacted to Black Lives Matter protests. Totally different. Some residents, like Shia Smith, even connected this to the current political climate. Said these groups feel emboldened, protected.
Wow, that disconnect is really something. So how did it end? Did the standoff just go on and on?
No. Residents actually drove the neo-Nazis away. They even burned one of their flags. A powerful moment of resistance. Talbert, she put it this way: we will not hesitate to protect our community. And after the show they put on, every black community that you can think of is going to show up for us 100%.
Powerful words. You can really hear that sense of solidarity.
Definitely. Speaks to a long history of resilience within black communities. They've faced this kind of hate before, and they're drawing strength from that. They're saying, we're not backing down, we stand together.
But even though the residents drove them off, I can't imagine it ends there. What did the authorities do after?
This is where things get really frustrating for Lincoln Heights. Evendale police put out a statement, claimed the protest, while very offensive, was not unlawful.
So basically, yeah, it's offensive, but hey, nothing we can do.
Pretty much. Added insult to injury, The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office said they did help de-escalate things, but residents felt justice wasn't served. Talbert pointed out this contrast. Police standing calmly in front of armed neo-Nazis, compared to how black men are often treated in that same community.
Yeah, that's jarring. Raises tough questions about fairness and equal treatment under the law.
It does. It speaks to the deep mistrust many communities feel towards law enforcement. When the police seem to offer more protection to those expressing hate than to those being targeted by it, it really erodes faith in the system.
And what about elected officials? Anyone address the incident?
Cincinnati Mayor Aftab Pureval, he condemned the neo-Nazi demonstration, but for a lot of residents, it felt empty. Just words, no real action. They felt it was all talk and no real commitment to protecting their community.
So you've got residents feeling threatened, law enforcement giving these guys a pass, and officials just offering words. No wonder there's frustration and anger. What happened next?
Well, the very next day, Residents and their supporters, they organized a gathering on that same overpass. Show unity, resilience. It was powerful, but even this peaceful event, it met with some hostility.
Really? What happened?
Kim LaChance, she grew up in Lincoln Heights during desegregation. Had her car vandalized while she was there. She was shaken, but she said, "We have to fight back."
That's disturbing. Makes you think the hate wasn't a one-time thing. There's a deeper current there.
It does. It's a sobering reminder. Even when people come together, the threat remains. And it shows the need to be vigilant, to dismantle the systems that fuel this.
This incident in Lincoln Heights, it taps into a much bigger, darker history. Ohio's got a troubled past with white supremacy.
You're right. The Ku Klux Klan had a big presence in Ohio in the early 20th century, bombed the University of Dayton, and Westerville was a major stronghold for them.
So this isn't just a recent thing at all. Makes Talbert's words even more chilling. She said, America needs to stand up and stop this madness because it's only going to get worse and it's going to get dangerous.
It is a stark warning, and I think she's right. This incident in Lincoln Heights, as awful as it is, needs to be a wake-up call.
We're just scratching the surface here. There's so much more to unpack.
Yeah.
But before we go any further, what are your initial thoughts? What really stands out to you about all this?
For me, what's striking is how much this one incident brings to the surface. Free speech versus hate speech, the role of law enforcement, racism's legacy, the rise of white supremacy, big questions.
A lot to process, for sure. We're going to dive deeper into all of this in just a moment. But first, we want to hear from you, our listener. What are your initial reactions? What resonates with you? We'll be back in a bit to continue our deep dive into this complex situation.
It's clear this isn't just some isolated thing, you know. We've seen this kind of white supremacist activity increasing all over the country.
Yeah, it really feels like this wave of hate is getting worse. It's scary, honestly. Makes you wonder, is this the future? Are we going to see more and more of this kind of racism out in the open?
Well, it's important to remember hate and extremism, they've always been here. In America, I mean. But yeah, there's definitely been an increase in public displays of hate. The Anti-Defamation League, actually, they reported that events organized or attended by white supremacists, they hit a record high in 2023.
And not just one place. Nashville, New Hampshire, Boston, Virginia, Michigan, D.C.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. This isn't just a regional thing. It's a national problem. What's causing this? Why are these groups feeling so bold?
That's the million-dollar question. It's complicated. But there are a few things at play here, I think. Social media and the internet, they play a big role. These platforms, they give hate groups a powerful tool to spread their message, recruit, connect with each other.
Yeah, it's like a echo chamber, a toxic one, where this stuff thrives. And the algorithms, they actually amplify the extreme stuff because it gets more engagement. It's a vicious cycle.
For sure. And then there's the political climate. Look, it's tricky to connect specific acts of violence directly to political rhetoric, but there's no denying some types of rhetoric create an environment where hate and intolerance, they become more acceptable.
You mean when leaders use divisive language or don't clearly condemn hate speech, it can embolden these groups to be more open and aggressive?
Yeah, that's part of it. When people in power signal certain groups are okay to target, even indirectly, it creates this sense of permission, like a license to act on those prejudices.
And it's not just words, it's actions or lack of action. Back in Lincoln Heights, the police basically gave the neo-Nazis a pass. Residents felt totally vulnerable.
Yeah, you see that double standard, where law enforcement seems to protect the haters more than those being targeted. It's incredibly damaging, erodes trust. And it fuels the same anger that fuels the extremists.
So we've got social media, political rhetoric, and this feeling that the system is rigged. That's a bad combination.
Very worrying trend. What happened in Lincoln Heights, it's just the tip of the iceberg. So many other communities are facing the same threat, often without anyone noticing.
So what can we do? How do we fight back against this without stepping on free speech? It's a tough balance.
It's an incredibly difficult challenge, no easy solutions. But it starts with acknowledging how big this problem is and how urgent it is. We can't just dismiss this as a few isolated incidents or fringe groups. We need to admit hate and extremism are woven into our society. And getting rid of them, it's going to take a long time and a lot of effort.
Okay, so what can individuals, communities, institutions, what can they do?
Well, for each of us, it's about being aware, staying vigilant, and speaking up against hate. Anytime, anywhere. Challenge prejudice and discrimination in your own life. Learn about hate groups, how they work. Support the organizations fighting them.
It starts with each of us, right? Taking responsibility to create a better society.
Exactly. For communities, it's about building bridges, understanding, and solidarity. Create places where people can talk respectfully, challenge stereotypes, and learn to empathize with people different from them.
Seeing each other as part of the same community, stronger together.
Yes. And institutions, they need to address the systemic biases and inequalities that feed hate and discrimination. Law enforcement and the justice system, they need to treat everyone fairly and equally, no matter their race, religion, or anything else.
So individual action, community building, institutional reform. Sounds like a big task.
It is, but it's necessary. If we want a society where everyone feels safe, respected, and valued, we can't just sit back and hope it goes away. It takes work and a commitment to justice and equality from all of us.
We also need to remember the importance of education. We need to teach young people about hate and intolerance, about discrimination, about how to think critically and be media literate.
You're absolutely right. We have to give them the tools to recognize and resist propaganda, to challenge stereotypes, and to build a better, more inclusive world.
So while Lincoln Heights is disturbing, it's also a chance to learn and grow, to see some uncomfortable truth about ourselves and work towards something better.
I agree. It reminds us the fight for justice and equality isn't over. We all have a role to play.
And that's a powerful message. We can choose to be passive or we can choose to be active agents of change.
Exactly. And the people in Lincoln Heights, they've shown us what courage and resilience look like when facing hate. They didn't back down. They stood up for their community. They demanded justice. That's an example for all of us.
It reminds us that even when things are bad, there's hope, strength, and the potential for positive change. But it takes effort, commitment, and collaboration.
I agree. It's about knowing we're all in this together and that everyone has to be okay for society to be okay.
Let's get back to Lincoln Heights and see how this incident connects to the bigger picture, the trends and challenges facing communities all over America. We've been talking about what happened in Lincoln Heights, Ohio, where that group of neo-Nazis targeted this historic black community, showed up with all that hate, and tried to intimidate people. And like we've been saying, it's not just a one-time thing. It reflects stuff happening all across the country.
Definitely. Lincoln Heights makes us ask some hard questions about who we are as a nation, about what we believe in. It raises all these issues: free speech, the police, racism, extremism.
Yeah, let's get into some of that. One thing that keeps coming up is this tension between protecting free speech, but also, combating hate speech. Where's the line? How do we make sure people can speak their minds, but not incite violence or, hurt others?
That's the age-old question, isn't it? It's tough, but we got to remember free speech isn't a blank check. There are limits, especially when it comes to inciting violence, harassment, discrimination.
So Lincoln Heights, armed neo-Nazis shouting racial slurs, targeting a community with that history of oppression. Does that cross the line? Is that hate speech we should restrict?
It's definitely something to think about. When speech is meant to scare people, to dehumanize, to create a climate of fear, that goes beyond just stating an opinion. It becomes a kind of aggression, a real threat.
And that's where law enforcement, they come in, right? The folks in Lincoln Heights felt like the police weren't doing anything. Just let these neo-Nazis do whatever, made them feel even more vulnerable, more angry.
Yeah, when it seems like law enforcement protects the haters more than the people they're targeting, that's so damaging. Erode trust, makes people resentful, can even lead to more violence.
So how do we build a system that's fair, that protects everyone equally, no matter who they are?
That's a tough one. It's not about just changing a few laws, it's about changing how we think. Admitting there's bias in the system and committing to getting rid of it. Training, accountability, and really listening to the communities that have been mistreated.
And we have to deal with the bigger problems that cause these biases too, like the assumptions we all have about race. The stories the media tells that reinforce stereotypes, the economic stuff that divides us.
Exactly. It's about the whole system, creating a society where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued, where everyone has the same chances, where justice is really blind.
Okay, so back to Lincoln Heights. What are the big takeaways here? What can we learn that might help other communities deal with this stuff?
Well, one thing's for sure. We can't just stay silent. When we see hate, discrimination, injustice, we have to say something. Challenge it. Stand up for the people being targeted.
Yeah, staying quiet, it can seem like you're okay with it, and it lets this poison spread.
Right. Another thing is how important solidarity is. Those residents, they were strong and resilient. They came together, supported each other, didn't back down.
That community spirit, coming together against injustice. That's powerful stuff. It gives me hope that even when things are bad, there's still good, there's still love, and things can change.
I agree. And change takes time. It's a long road. There'll be bumps along the way. But we can't quit. We have to keep pushing, keep demanding better, keep working for a world that's fair.
That's a good note to end on. Lincoln Heights was a wake-up call. It showed us that the fight for justice isn't over. Each of us needs to look at our own biases, speak up against hate, build understanding, and work towards a world where everyone feels safe, respected, and valued.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And remember, every little bit helps. Every act of kindness, empathy, courage, it all matters. We have to recognize that we're all connected. We're all in this together.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It was tough, but important. We hope this got you thinking, maybe even inspired you to do something. Remember, the fight for justice goes on, and we all have a part to play. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay hopeful.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.